Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I am excited. Today I have David Asarnow with me. David, why don't you just introduce yourself and let's start by talking about your trip to Nepal, and then we'll get into actually what you do for a living.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me. First of all, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I had the honor and pleasure to build a business as an entrepreneur in corporate America. It was a 68-year-old company, did $68 million in revenue, and I was able to grow 45 million in 5 years. New division of the company, became president and CEO of the first all digital portrait studio. We franchised it, grew that to 8 figures, and since then, I've really been helping entrepreneurs build, grow, and scale. Started speaking, training, consulting with Tony Robbins, Chet Holmes. When Chet passed away, Business Nitrogen went full time. So I've been doing this for over 15 years, helping entrepreneurs.
I love it. And by the way, you're about to get a little bit of secondhand fanboy from me. Chet Holmes is one of my all-time favorite people. And my only regret is I never met him. So I want to know, was he the same guy off stage as he was on stage?
Well, it's interesting. It depends what you ask. And I know his daughter, Amanda, very well. And Chet had a lot of people know him for his fiery personality. So I don't know what he was like on stage, because I actually was one of the few people who got an opportunity to speak for him when he was sick and go to some events and do the training and talk that he would have given. He was so nice to me. We had the first time I met him. Can I tell a story? Because pretty interesting.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I was a speaker for them and for Business Breakthroughs International, which was Chet's company that he became brought Tony in as a partner. And the president of the division, they were testing out a new talk one night. And Doug had laryngitis, and he calls me and he's like, David. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I'm supposed to do this new talk. I won't talk that. I'll hurt my voice if I speak like that the whole time when I'm doing it. But he's like, can you do this talk for me? And I'm like, what is it? It's a training on how to hire a sales superstar. At the end of it, we're going to be selling a $2,997, $3,000 program where they get the training and then they get a session with one of our recruiters. And I said, when is it? He said, it's in 2 hours. I said, so you're giving me a brand new talk I know nothing about. I can barely understand you, and you can't talk, and you want me to go. I said, send me the slides, the PowerPoint slides. So I'm like, what is this? I said, I will just ask questions and things I can't figure out on my own because I'm going to wing it. And so I asked questions. I was like, I don't know what that means. I'm deleting the slide. He's like, but I got to tell you, the president of the company is going to be on at Mitch, and he's going to probably say, why are you changing the presentation that we worked on together? And I said, do you want me to do this presentation or not? I said, I can't have a slide that I can't articulate and it doesn't make sense to me. So I changed the presentation. I said, how am I going to sell these guys and train them, these CEOs, when I really was just given this? So there were some things that I could talk about that I knew. And I just opened this way. And I told the story. I said, I built, as an employee for someone else, I built a division of a company, what my intro was, from 0 to 45 million in 5 years. Then started another company, president CEO. We grew that to 8 figures in 5 years. How many of you want to learn how to hire me? And everyone started laughing. Meanwhile, my phone's going off like 10 minutes into my talk because I'm literally not following the script, right? And at the end, I mean, my phone was blowing up. What the F's going on? Mitch is blowing up my phone. I turned over my phone. I couldn't get distracted because it was a webinar, right? And the funniest thing is, at the end of it, I actually closed 70% of the room onto their $3,000 program. And Doug calls me afterwards. He's like, what the hell was going on? My phone was going off. And then at the end, he's like, oh my gosh, he just closed, almost 3/4 of the room. And I said, Yes, I turn over my phone and I stop replying to you because you're distracting me while I'm supposed to be training these people. And anyway, I talked to Mitch, and Mitch is like, I told Chet what you did. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? The next, I did have a conversation with Chet, and that's where I would say it's the first time I ever had a conversation with him, and it was very friendly. We had multiple conversations from there. He found out about my background in digital growth and marketing funnels, and this was obviously, you know, back in 2011 or so, 12, right before he passed away. And so they gave me an opportunity, and I started working on he promoted me. I went from screwing up to becoming a vice president in his company, and having working directly with him and Mitch on their digital strategy, which was kind of cool. So anyway, that's my Chet Holmes story.
I love that. You know, I liked Chet a lot. And then I saw one of his videos where he was on stage with his daughter, Amanda, and just the way he talked about her. I'm a father first, and everything else I do is a bonus. And I was like, I love this man. And it's weird, but I'm like, still to this day, Amanda's fully grown, and I still see her as, I think she was 12 or something on the stage. And I'm like, you know, it's fascinating that she's now transitioning into becoming a full-blown monk, and her work there, and selling the company. Yeah. So
yes, I don't know if she sold it yet. And I know her. I've gone to dinner a few times with her and her Guruji. So I mean, I know what she's doing, and she's done an amazing job, you know, taking her dad's legacy and continuing going. And I think, you know, she needs to do what's best for her now.
Yeah. Well, and again, she was 24 or something when she took over a multi-million-dollar company. No pressure, right?
Zero pressure whatsoever.
You know, it's funny. I'm going to share this. My story is way less cool. But last night I was going around the house and accumulating all of my versions of the ultimate sales machine. And I think I found 3 or 4. And my wife's like, why do you have so many? And I said, well, clearly it's because I can never find them.
Wait, I have a question. Did you even know that I was connected to the company? Because that's not in my intro.
It's on your LinkedIn.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those, I knew it and then I forgot it. But yeah, I was on your LinkedIn, and I was like, oh, I got to make sure I ask him. So
interesting.
But I actually require all of my clients. I do AI and I do some business consulting and coaching. Mm-hmm. If you aren't willing to read The Ultimate Sales Machine, I don't need to talk to you. There's nothing I want to do with you unless you believe that Chet is one of my favorite people. Don't get me wrong, I love Tony Robbins too, but he's here and Chet's somewhere up with the angels and gods. So,
well, he is now. God willing, that's where he's at right now. Yeah. You know, the interesting thing, you know, that book has very little to do with sales. It has everything to do with how you look at building a business. And Chet used to use his martial arts analogies so much, and it's doing one thing 12,000 times versus most entrepreneurs have shiny object and do 12,000 things. The interesting thing as well, he attracted a really talented group of people that to this day, you know, I'm connected to. He did attract superstars. And you want to talk about the best of the best, iron sharpens iron. And if you want to if you want to get better, surround yourself with people who are as good as or better than you, because that's how you're going to get better.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it was the preface. I was hooked. It was when he's talking about pig-headed discipline. And I'm like, yeah, that's what's missing. I mean, it's today everybody wants to try 12,000 things, and then they wonder why they're burnt out, exhausted, and broke. And it's like, discipline people. So
yes. In fact, I'm writing a book right now, and it's called Grit to Gold. It's because you have to have that determination. You have to have that grit in order to create the gold on the other side. And so many people, as you just said, want to go this way, that way. And well, this didn't work, versus saying, what is the best way that we go? Let's pick one thing, one lane, and go. I just spoke with someone this morning and last was follow-up conversation conversation from last week, and they're like, hey, I do AI and consulting as well, as you know. And one of the things, I've got some AI funnels, and they're like, well, we could do it for this market and this market. And I said, no, pick a niche, because, and they're like, well, it doesn't take that much time. I said, it doesn't take that much time to recreate. But if we pick one that's the best niche, you now can go sell the same thing 5,000 times, and you don't have to recreate it every time.
It is funny. I give the ultimate sales machine away as a gift all the time. And it's amazing how many people, they give it back or they re-gift it and they say, I'm not a salesperson. And I'm like, oh God, you literally judged the book by the cover. I'll rip the cover off. I'll tell you it's something else, but trust me, you need to read this. And yeah. So let's talk about you. I could talk about Chet all day long. I literally, I would love, if I could time travel or have dinner with anybody, past, present, or future, I would have dinner with Chet.
Okay.
His brain fascinates me. And it's, I love, there's a quote, something about Charlie Munger calling him in and saying, I just want to make sure you didn't do anything illegal, immoral, unethical. And it's like, that says so much about them, that their results are that consistent. And I love that there's like 12 disciplines. So let's talk about business nitrogen.
Sure.
I'm going to guess you've learned a lot about systems, the company you've kept, but what does your company do exactly? And how are you seeing the future of AI right now? Because I'm just beyond giddy about what's possible.
Well, it's interesting. What we have been and where we've been morphing to are two different things. So Business Nitrogen is business growth strategy company that also does marketing and implementations. So our specialty, no different than when I was working with Chet or when I was in franchising, we're the best of the best when it comes to packaging, presenting high ticket offers, and using online automation in order to make that happen. Today, about 3.5 years ago, I saw artificial intelligence for the first time. And I saw it in the sense that I was at a conference and the person was talking about the future, and they gave an example of a voice AI demo. And I said, but it wasn't a live demo, it was a pre-recorded. I said, this is really cool. It sounds perfect. I guarantee that it was edited because there was no latency, there was no problems. And 3.5 years ago, we know that there was a lot of latency.
Yeah.
So, but that made me realize that I needed to learn this. I needed to do things differently. And
yeah.
I did. I started building a voice AI agent app. Today, I still have it. And yet a lot of what we do is how do I create a very simple, take the best of what we've done with Business Nitrogen, the marketing automation. How do we integrate AI to do automated appointment bookings, and then have a cost-effective package for specific niche? Outside of that, I'm doing AI consulting. I'm doing speaking on artificial intelligence, and I'm going to be doing more of that. And I'll lead a workshop teaching someone how to use ChatGPT, how to build a custom voice agent, how to build autonomous agents, whatever I need to do for the audience, I'll do, and try to break it down into the best way possible. Now, what's happening out of that? Business Nitrogen is an AI empowered marketing agency that's doing niche work for people while I'm having fun. And really, it's sort of like the epiphany of Nepal. And I was talking with my son. He's like, Dad, all you do is, like, even in the free time when I had Wi-Fi when we're up in the mountains, I'm looking at AI stuff. I'm watching videos. He said, Dad, this is what you're having the most fun with. He said, why don't you do more of that? And so that's the decision I made when I came back from Nepal. I am doing more of that.
I love that your view from the top of the world gave you better perspective.
I only got up to 16,950 feet. So
how far is that from the top? I mean, the numbers just break my brain. But if we look at Kilimanjaro, you're above oxygen line, right?
We're right at close to oxygen line. I can tell you this, and I'm so glad Josh told me this would happen. the base camp before we made the final climb, which was about 2,800 feet, or 2,900 feet. We're about 14,000 feet sleeping. And he had just climbed and trekked in India in the Himalayas. And he was up at 17,800 feet, which is about as high as you can go without oxygen. And he's like, Dad, just warning you, I was in a single tent by myself. It was 0 degrees outside. And all I had was a sleeping bag rated to 35 degrees and a hand warmer, and that was my heater. By the way, it worked fine.
Yeah.
It worked fine. But Josh says, Dad, just like warning, you may wake up in the middle of the night not being able to breathe. And if you do, don't worry about it. Just take shallow breaths until you can breathe again, and then take some deep breaths, get yourself some oxygen, then go back to sleep. So at 12:38 in the morning, you know how I know? Because I woke up going, I look at my watch. I look at my Garmin watch, and it was 12:38 in the morning. I had gotten to bed at around 10:30, and we were getting up at 3.
And you're gasping for air at 12:30.
And so anyway, I calmed myself down. I sat up. I got myself calmed down, breathing. I went back to sleep. I did it 2 more times that night. And then I woke up on my own. I woke up at 3. I woke up 2:58 before my alarm.
Well done.
Yep. I got up, got dressed, packed up, and they knocked on my tent at 3:30 in the morning. Said, "Are you up?" And I was like, "I'm ready to go." And we ate breakfast, had coffee, and started our climb at 4 a.m.
Wow. I love that story. And I'm just going to share a weird story. I was invited to Denver to speak at an event, and I'd just been at sea level. And I got off the plane, and I'm fine. They took me to the hotel, the venue, and I was literally started speaking, and all of a sudden the oxygen was gone. And I'm like, somebody get me a chair. I'm going down. And they're laughing at me, and I'm like, this is high altitude today.
That's why they call it the Mile High City. Now, that 5,000 feet doesn't feel like anything anymore. I didn't really feel it. I did some altitude training where I put on an oxygen deprivation mask, and you're walking or hiking with the mask on. I did 2 weeks of that, but I think because I don't know how they clean them, I got COVID, and so that took my training. I couldn't train for almost 2 weeks, so I took it easy, which may have actually not been a bad thing because it got my body rested before I went and did it. I would never been so sore in my life because you don't have a time to rest. You're literally going, hey, today we're climbing 2,800 feet. They do everything in meters. I can't do in meters, but you're climbing 2,800 feet. You're going to go walk 12, 13 miles, and it's all uphill. And by the way, when they tell you you're 2,800 feet, it's really not 2,800 feet because they have what they call the poly flat. So you go up, you go down, you go up. Now you ended 2,800 feet higher, but you probably did 4,000 feet that day.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And it's not a straight line ever, is it?
They call it in the poly flat there.
I feel like mountain climbing is the ultimate metaphor for business and being an entrepreneur, because we climb and we see this and we're like, oh, exciting. And then we get to the top of a peak and we're like, ooh, there's a higher peak. But we forget that there's that valley in between.
And then we have to remember in NLP, that is true. We get up to a peak and then you've got the valley. And the problem is once we start going downhill, it's really easy to see where you're going and feel like you're free falling. Yeah. So in NLP, that's why understanding where you want to go is so important, getting that clarity, because you look to that next peak. So instead of you're falling down, but as you're falling down, you look up where I'm going and why am I going there? What does it mean to go there? What do I need to go there? What support do I need? What systems do I need? Focusing in on that, what that typically does, and we talked a lot about this when I was with Tony and Chet too, is it helps you short circuit that and the climb back up again.
I love that. And I think it's fascinating to me because when I hear NLP, I naturally think Tony and neuro-linguistic programming. But I hang out with a lot of AI people and they're like, no, it's natural language processing. And I'm like,
well, By the way, NLP, it's natural language processing from our mind. Let's reframe this, because
Exactly.
we get to change how our mind thinks by what the words that we put in it and what we focus in on. So here we go.
Love it. And by the way, your energy level, I'm already thinking there's a couple of people in my network that need to meet you. So let's talk about what you actually do in your day-to-day and what your company does. Tell me a story about one of your favorite clients and the outcome they got. You don't need to name names, but what was the impact of having worked with you guys? Because I'm going to guess it's not what most people would expect.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question. And it's hard to single out just one client. So I'll tell a couple micro stories. Then you tell me what you want. So I have a client I've worked with for over 15 years. In fact, I was still a speaker with Tony and Chet when they started being a client. They were doing $250,000 a year, and today they're doing well over $100 million. Now, I don't take credit for all that. They've got an amazing team that they built. I was a catalyst as part of it, and obviously they still have me as part of their company as an advisor and bringing ideas in. We started back then with marketing funnels and automation. It came as a strategic executive advisor, training their clients and being part of it. So the transformation, obviously they're doing really well now, much better than they were when we started. And I think that's the whole goal, is whoever you work with. I heard a coach say something recently. How you start an engagement is just as important in how you end the engagement. And so many times, so always putting your best forward, no matter what. And it's so funny because, like, if you ever, by the way, I hope we're friends now. We hope we continue working together forever in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
But the thing is, always looking at it, the reason is you give your all, no matter what, until there's no longer that commitment. And so it's always putting your best out there, always reinventing, doing things differently, putting the latest and greatest. So what do I do on a day-to-day basis today for them? I'm leading AI trainings for their people. I'm showing them how they can create leverage and scale. I'm giving them systems and tools that I've built for myself and my company. A lot of times when I'm speaking, I'll give freebies away. I'll give a custom GPT. I'll give it automation. I'll give something away that they can plug and play, utilize in their day-to-day, or I'll train based upon the tools that I have. And so to me, that's what I do on a day-to-day. My company, Business Nitrogen, does marketing automations combined with AI to help companies build, grow, and scale. But I have another company. They came to us for marketing. I'll give you two examples. One company, when COVID hit, they lost a couple $1 million a year because they were speaking on stages, never did anything online. I said, "What's your goal?" "I want to do $1 million in the first 12 months. I said, "Okay, that's an ambitious goal." We did it in 90 days. So,
sorry, I have to ask, can you assure me you didn't do anything illegal, immoral, or unethical?
Yes, I can tell you we did zero illegal, immoral, or unethical.
Charlie would want to know.
we put the message out there in a way that people haven't seen it, or this person wasn't presenting themselves in the past. Another client came to us wanting marketing, and I said, "You don't need marketing." I said, "You need the Dream 100," which it's funny. Chet called it the Dream 100. And this is the first conversation that Chet and I had. It turned up being 2.5 hours. I said, "Chet, you call it the Dream 100. I call it the Target 25. And he's like, "Well, I've already trademarked this." I said, I actually found out afterwards he didn't. That's a whole nother story. But I said, because when I built that business for $45 million, that got grew to fit $45 million a year, I said, I had 25 targets. I just happened to sell half of them. And they were really big companies. And he's like, And I told him the story where I mailed the sneaker to McDonald's. Now that I have my foot in your door, my please has 5 minutes of your time. He's like, can I use that? Can I put that in my next book? And I said, sure.
Wait, that was you? I remember reading about that. Look at that. See, I knew you before I knew you.
You knew. So it wasn't my original story. Well, the FedEx box was. What's his name? Harvey McKay. Do you remember Harvey McKay?
Mm-hmm.
And he was the envelope guy, right?
Yep.
So I remember when I was in my early 20s, reading a book from Harvey McKay, and he was talking about mailing a sneaker to use now that I have my foot in your door. Then I combined that together with a sales trainer that my dad told me about when I was 22. I asked him, Dad, what's the best sales training you ever went through? And he told me Anthony Parinello, because it's about getting in front of the very important top officer. And I said, okay. So I went through that cassette series that my dad had, and then I bought his book. And I said, how do I combine what Harvey McKay did with this concept? And that's really how I did it. I created campaigns that I would reach out to CEOs, executives. I mean, I got up to the head of product development for McDonald's. I got into the executive director of Dairy Queen. The CEO of International Paper was a client. I got into Sam's Club, Walmart, Costco, Starbucks. All of these were cold calls.
Yep.
But it was using, and so when Chet and I got in that first conversation, it was like one-upping each other. Like he's telling his stories, I tell my stories. And I think that's why we got along, is because we had that same kind of mentality on how you build, grow, and scale.
I love it. And we did not rehearse this beforehand, but Dream 100 is my holy grail. If you're not willing to implement it, don't talk to me about anything else. And, it was fascinating to me to find Russell. I learned about Dream 100 from Russell Brunson, and then I'm like, I don't feel like he made it. I think he credits Chet. So then I started stalking everything about Chet online. And then I read Dana Derrick's book, and I'm like, how did he get the trademark? It was like,
well, that's what you heard. I wasn't going to say that someone else trademarked it.
I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, that's like, in my world, that's Chet's
Look what
legacy.
I have right here. This was not planned.
Oh,
it's like I have a series of books that I need to revisit, and they're sitting right next to me on my desk.
I hope Expert Secrets is in there, because Russell did it. You're a 2 Comma Club. Never mind. You know more than you don't need the book.
I was in I was in Russell's Atlas group, so I've got a couple 2 Comma Club X's.
Russell is one of my one day I'd like to meet people. Like, he just seems like, okay, I'm dating myself. I'm a father first, but he seems like a sweet kid. And when he first came out, I was like, oh, he'd be a great play date for my son. Like, it just,
he's not a kid. He's older.
Well, at the time he was like 30, and he seems younger than he is.
He seems younger than he is.
But he just seems sweet, is what I'm saying. He's like a good, genuine, sweet guy.
He's very shy.
Yeah.
He is probably one of the biggest introverts that I've ever met.
And just a nerd. I love when he starts, like, if you see a video where he's pulling apart some lumpy mailer that he found, like, he
gets excited about it.
It's like Christmas.
You know why? Well, there's 2 things about Russell. One, he's a geek. He loves his family and his kids. He's so, like you brought up your Chet, he loves his family and will do anything. And iron sharpens iron. One of the things that I really liked about his group is that he shared the inner workings of what worked.
Yeah.
Everyone did. And that's how I learned things that I was then able to apply to my business or my client's business. So that's, it's funny. I have a friend of mine who had Robert Cialdini as a client. And he's like, Dave, I'd like, what can I do for you? He said, well, I have a client, Robert Cialdini. Do you know him? I said, yeah, I know who Cialdini is. The art and science of influence. He's like, I said, how can I help you? He's like, we've been trying to get in touch with Russell Brunson, and everyone who knows Russell says that they can get us connected. For the past 1.5 years, they haven't been. He's like, I said, I think I can make it happen. And he's like, why do you think you can do it and other people don't? I said, because other people are trying to set up an appointment with Cialdini, thinking that Cialdini is going to sell him. But I actually know what Russell gets excited about. And he's probably a fanboy of Cialdini and would love nothing more to meet him. And so I Voxered, because that's how you get in contact with him. I just said, hey, Russell, it's David. I'm on with someone who works with Cialdini, and Cialdini's a big fan of yours, and he'd love to have a conversation with you. In fact, I think he'd be good to speak at one of your events if you're open to it. And less than 2 minutes later, Russell like, no way. I still have that boxer right here. I'm not going to play it right now. But
hang on to that. I would love to have been in the green room. Cialdini is one of my other favorites, and I loved Russell's story about how he Dream 100 himself into working with Tony and Dean. Mm-hmm. So it's, people come to me all the time.
Dean wasn't part of it back then. Russell did.
Yeah.
He bought that $500,000 website, mastermind.com, and gave it to him.
Yep. It's people. One of my other favorites is Bob Berg, the Go-Giver. He co-wrote with John David Mann, and people are so used to what's in it for me. And it was funny. My wife does not understand my networking. She's like, "What's the money from it? What's the immediate ROI?" And I'm like, "This is a portfolio." And I'm not kidding. She was trying to arrange a training event for her team, and she's like, "Oh my God, we can't find a speaker." And I pulled out my LinkedIn and said, "Which one?" And she's like, "How much?" And I'm like, "They'll do it for me as a favor." What? She's like, "Oh my God, the budget got cut." And she was like, "Oh, we're gonna have to go with Joe from next door." And I'm like, "No, we'll get you somebody cool." So I'm gonna put you on that list if that's okay, because
sounds good.
It's I get so much. I don't know what it is. Clearly, I am public about the Dream 100, and I tell people how amazing it is and how much I love it. And I love that you're a marketer and you love the Dream 100, because I get a lot of marketers who come at me and say, "Oh, clearly you don't have a business or you don't know how to grow." And I'm like, "Explain that." And they're like, "Well, we get this many clicks, this many likes, this many impressions."
Who cares about that? Yeah. The funny thing is, people come to me today. What do you think my go-to is?
Dream 100.
I actually say 25, because sometimes
25. Sorry, yes.
100's too much for some people. So in one of my talks, I talk about 25. If you had 25 potential clients, and that's all you had as your target list, how intentional would you think about creating that target list?
Yeah.
And then if you didn't convert them into clients, you wouldn't have a business. What would you do to build a relationship, rapport, respect, in order to turn them into a client?
Yeah.
And then once you got them, what would you do to keep them? Because you couldn't go after any more. And so I like using that frame. Let's chunk it down to 25. Out of that 25, let's pick our first 5. I have a client, another story. Actually, this is probably one of the biggest transformations, because she just told me this yesterday. Last December, so a year ago, and we working together a couple of years. I'm growth consulting. Her business is about $2.5 million. And I said, "What is your goal?" "Well, I'd really like to double it." I said, "There's only one way that I know how to do that quickly." And I told, I said, "They're Dream 100, but I like doing 25. And then I said, "Let's do 10, because I could see overwhelm. You know what I mean? When you can see, so let's pick 10 people. And here's and I said, any of these 10 people could help you double your business." So she told me yesterday that one of them placed their first order, and the next year they should be about 2.5 million. That was one client. Okay. Guess how many more of the target 10 that we went after, how many target 10 type clients that could double her business did we get this past year?
I'm going to guess 10, because that's the way the numbers usually work.
No, we didn't get 10 out of 10, but we got 40%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still.
So you talked about intentionality. What you focus in on expands.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one client's going to double. I said, so what does that mean to your total revenue? I said, actually, the team's calculating it right now. And so we're going to get together next week. And I want to know what the total impact is from 1 year creating. I said, okay, now we need our next 10 for next year. And actually, the byproduct of this is some of the largest distribution has to bring her in, which it wouldn't pay attention before, because that's the amplifying effect. That could be like a 10x effect.
Yeah. And, I'm just going to share my little rant, because people always tell me, oh, it takes too much time, it's not worth it. And I once landed a multi-billion-dollar company as a client, and I'm like, tell me that's not worth it. Because everybody's chasing these, and they're knocking on doors that really don't matter. If I get 20,000 followers on TikTok, so what? But if I get 10 clients that double my business, and by the way, I use Dream 10 because I realized a lot of businesses, they think they can handle Dream 100. You give them 10 and they're like, holy crap, this is.
Yeah. That's why I call it Target 10, Target 25. Similar concept.
Yeah. I think I'm going to call it Dream X now. I don't know if that's taken, but
if it's not, you should own it. Yes.
I feel like Elon's going to come after me for that one. I might be too close. Anyways.
Well,
so
I guess so. You got to think about that.
Oh yeah. I love talking to you. I want to be mindful of your time. I'm going to ask my favorite question. And now I can actually do it in context. So you did a father-son trip with your son and Josh, right?
Yep. Yes.
What advice would you, as a proud father, give Josh today? Because he's at the start of his career, I presume. What advice would you give him with the rapid rate of change, the explosion of possibilities with AI?
Well, I'll give you the advice I just gave him, not what I give him, because we had a lot of time together.
I expected that.
I think I'm like, Josh, you tell me I'm old, but yet I know more about AI than most people your age. I said, the market is shifting, it's changing, and it's changing rapidly. You need to spend some time and learn this. He's like, well, I need to learn the code something. I said, no, you don't need to learn the code anything. You need to learn how to prompt engineer and talk to AI to create what you want. And I've given him access to my trainings, some of my trainings. I don't think he's watched them, probably, because most people you give things to don't watch them. He probably goes online and looks at them. So I told him, I said, you need to learn about AI, you learn artificial intelligence, what's possible, because I can tell you this, we're going to see in the next year, and I'll mark this, we're going to, in 2026, we're going to hear about companies laying off senior leadership and executives because they did not take the time to learn to create leverage and harness the power of artificial intelligence.
And I also believe there's going to be a rebound of the consultants, the wise ones with the gray hair that got laid off because, AI made them redundant. And now we don't know how to think anymore. Well,
the question is, how do you make AI make you sharper? And that's where I believe that AI can become your biggest collaborative partner, because you can ask it to think like, challenge me and think like Elon Musk, or like Chet Holmes, or like Tony Robbins. And we can hit things in multiple different areas.
Well, it's funny because one day I have a very childish brain, and all of my AI models, I build custom GPTs. They all have fun names. So on the weekend, I built Cat GPT because it's a cat and that's all it does. People are like, why are you doing that? Why not? But my favorite is Chet GPT.
Oh, you have a Chet GPT.
He kicks my butt. His mandate is iron sharpens iron, and he kicks my butt. And always reminds me of the 12 principles and Pigheaded Discipline. That's all he does. And whenever I'm drifting, I hear Chet telling me to come back. And, I really believe I'm teaching my kids not how to use technology, but how to use AI to help them think sharper and clearer. And I pity their classmates because the schools of blanket ban, no AI, AI's evil. And my kids come home and we're sitting there seeing what we can build with AI.
Well, your kids will be ahead.
And I will say that the most fun thing, again, don't judge me as a father, 13-year-old, 16-year-old in the car, we talk about systems thinking.
Well, that's your kid. They'll be thinking about that when they get out on their own, whether they do something on their own or they do something for someone else. It will move them ahead. They've got a leg up.
Well, it was a funny thing. A friend of mine, I was getting frustrated. I was teaching him how to use ChatGPT for something really basic. And I got impatient. It was my finest hour. And I said, how come you don't understand this? My 13-year-old does. And he started laughing and he's like, do you have any idea how stupid that statement is? Your 13-year-old is not normal. And I went, oh, yeah. He's had 13 years of me. So,
well, and he's grown up with this, where someone in their 40s and 50s didn't grow up with this. The only way that they know about it is if they've self-taught themselves from the beginning, or there's programs now. But
I love it. Well, let's finish with a couple of fun questions. So question number one, where can people go to connect with you and reach you?
Get me on LinkedIn. It's my name and my photo. There's 4 David Asarnows, and you'll recognize me. Or businessnitrogen.com.
Love it. Now, this is going to be my new favorite question. How would somebody recognize one of your target 25s to connect with you?
What I'm looking for now is people who have stages of, say, 200 to 2,500 people that want to learn how to harness the power of AI, create leverage in a very simple and entertaining format. So I'm taking what I've done over the years and now helping people build, grow, and scale with, a 90-day action plan with artificial intelligence.
I love it. Love it. And I think that's the key is the action plan, because a lot of people, they'll go straight to action. They don't plan, or they'll get stuck in strategy. And I think what I love about AI is you can take a strategy, turn it into a plan, and while you're at it, give somebody an SOP to follow, right?
Exactly.
I love it. Well, Dave, it was an absolute pleasure. You will be a repeat guest if you ever want it. And I will connect you with a few of my friends because I think they need to know you. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me.